I wasn't going to. I was just going to report it.
Okay. All right, everybody ready?
Hutch, you good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So this morning at shortly after midnight, our communications center received multiple calls about gunshots being fired at 28 Seamanship Trail. Our deputies responded along with Flagler County Fire Rescue. They found one victim who had been shot here, and another victim was taken by a civilian to Florida Hospital Flagler. So we had two different locations. I can identify the victims. One is Tristan George. He was shot twice. The other one was a Michael McRoberts, who was shot once. They were both ultimately transported to Halifax Hospital, the trauma center, where they had critical injuries, but not expected to be life-threatening. This investigation was delayed because McRoberts decided to give us a false name, so that sent us down some paths that wasted a lot of time. Turns out he's a fugitive from Flagler County and active felony warrants for his arrest. They are both at Halifax Hospital, where we have detectives and deputies there interviewing. We secured a search warrant for this residence. We have recovered a gun that was used in the shooting. We also discovered during that search warrant some drug materials in plain view. So we are now obtaining a second search warrant so that we can search the house for drugs. So we believe, based on the evidence that we have, that this was criminal activity, that our community does not need to be concerned, that it was a very focused incident at this house and between the parties involved. We are trying to identify a white female who dropped McRoberts off at Florida Hospital Flagler. We don't have her identified yet, and I believe you have photos from surveillance video at the hospital. So we are asking the public, if you know who this person is by name or where this person is. Person of interest might be a witness, might be more than that, we don't know, to call us at 386-313-4911 and give us that information. Or you can call Crime Stoppers of Northeast Florida and go through that system and remain anonymous.
Sure. Do we think they shot each other? Do we think there's another shooter? What's the relationship between the two, and how did it go down?
We're still investigating that. We can just tell from the evidence here that, you know, if you deal in the criminal underworld, this is a hazard of your occupation. And so we believe that, you know, once we secure this other search warrant, we will get to the root cause of what caused this shooting today. But I'm not ready to speculate on that. But I think the evidence will point us in the right direction once we secure the next search warrant.
What about charges? Brittany called them suspect victims when I talked to her this morning. What kind of charges might these two face?
Well, depending on how the investigation goes, I clearly there's attempted murder here, but which one or both is yet to be determined.
At this point, you said there was a gun recovered. Do you believe it's the same gun who shot both of these men?
We don't know the answer to that. Obviously, this gun and our evidence that has been recovered will go to the FDLE crime lab for analysis, and so we will really know that for sure for some days yet.
Who lived here of these two suspects, Sheriff? Do you know?
It's my understanding that Tristan George is the one that lived here with his mother, and there was also a roommate that was renting a room.
And then McMasters allegedly shows up and something unfolds?
That's our understanding at this point, yes.
And are both these suspects known to you? I know you said McMasters is is someone that you knew. Is the other suspect? Is this a house that you've responded to, or?
McRoberts was known to us, and we were actively searching for him because of our felony warrants. I'm not familiar with Tristan George. I can tell you that within just a couple days ago, we did receive information from the community that was concerned about this residence, and we were starting to conduct an investigation on it.
What was McRoberts wanted for?
Remember-
Violation of probation, grand theft.
Violation of probation, grand theft.
Not drug related for McRoberts?
Not that I'm aware of.
But here was the activity. People were alleging drug activity here.
The tip that we received just like 2 days ago was that there seemed to be a lot of activity at this house, a lot of cars coming and going. And, you know, the community neighbors tend to know when something's not right, and we appreciate them letting us know. That's how we make a lot of drug cases, is when the neighborhood lets us know that something doesn't look right at a particular house, and then we start to investigate it.
So this woman drives McRoberts to the hospital. How did it become clear, or how did first responders know that they needed to come back to the house in order to get George?
Well, we received multiple calls. So we received calls from neighbors that there was a shooting that had occurred here. So we had deputies here, and then obviously Florida Hospital Flagler notified us when they had a shooting victim arrive. So it was kind of simultaneously that we sent deputies to both locations.
So when you got here, George is still here, but McRoberts was gone with this woman.
That is correct.
Have you all haven't located her, checked her?
We have not. We're still asking the public for help in identifying her. We have very good photos from the surveillance video from the hospital of her. The vehicle that was used, not so much, because she left the hospital at a high rate of speed. So it's kind of a blur, as I think you've been provided those photos. We believe it is a silver Honda Accord.
And we assume that she probably showed up here as well. She doesn't live here, has no connection to the neighborhood.
We don't have her identified
Right.
yet, so I really can't answer that.
But I mean, I'm assuming the roommate or the mother would have been able to tell you if these two people showed up.
Well, let me say that in the beginning, both of these victims, with quotes, were not forthcoming. So they were either trying to hide that the one was certainly wanted, or they were trying to hide criminal activity. And all of that's part of the investigation.
So are you ready to say yet that this is or may have been a drug-related shooting?
I'm not ready to say that. I will tell you that the evidence is leaning in that direction, but I think once we secure the second search warrant, the first search warrant, the reason we're getting two is the first search warrant was dealing with a shooting and evidence of the shooting. When we went into the house, so it's a very narrow in scope search warrant. When we got into the house in plain view while we're conducting the search warrant for evidence of the shooting, we see various drug and other materials. So to ensure that we don't lose that evidence in court, we are now having to obtain a second search warrant that will allow us to search for narcotics in the house.
That's saying that-
Correct.
Are you all planning to search any other residences? Or
Not at this time, no.
One guy shot twice, one guy shot once, correct?
Correct.
And am I correct that the shooting happened on the street? And if so, what was the immediate danger to other people who would be in the area, other people in houses?
The shooting did occur from what we have been able to determine in the street, the edge of the driveway. Clearly, anytime you have untrained people starting to shoot in a neighborhood, there's always a risk of a stray bullet going into a home and hitting somebody innocent. In this particular case, everything was focused at this house, and it does not appear that we had any stray bullets go anywhere else other than at this house. And the vehicle in the driveways have some shattered glass and so forth.
Was the gun found inside the house or outside on the ground?
We found the gun inside during the search warrant.
What were the wounds to?
I don't have all that information other than I know that they were bad wounds. That's why they went to the trauma center in Halifax. And, one was shot twice and one was shot once.
So apparently the shooting's outside. One victim, though, manages to get back inside. The other takes off.
Correct.
And do you know any idea how many shots were fired, Sheriff?
I can tell you there were a lot. I don't have an exact number.
But the car was shot up. Was the house shot up?
Yes.
There was a
Inside and outside?
Outside.
I see I guess that's a doggy cage right there. Were there pets obviously inside? Were there children inside the home?
No children that I'm aware of. There is a little dog that was in that cage, which is fine.
And the mother was home at the time.
That's my understanding. Yes.
Is the roommate charged with anything, or is he just cooperating as a witness?
No, he's not charged with anything. I don't believe he was actually home when this happened.
At this point, aside from the woman who you believe to be a witness, is there anybody else that you're looking for in this investigation?
No, that's the only one we're looking for right now. We believe she may have information that would help us with this case. So if anybody knows who she is, it's a great photo. Normally you don't get great photos on surveillance. This is a good photo, so I think we should be able to get a tip or be able to identify her fairly easily, hopefully.
Sheriff, you mentioned, you alluded to drugs being in plain sight. Are either the mother or the roommate implicated in this in any way?
Well, that will be determined by the location of the drugs when we do the thorough search warrant, whose rooms they were, who had access to all that stuff. So, until these cases take a while. You don't want to make a mistake, because you get defense attorneys that are looking for that one little mistake to throw out your evidence. So we would much rather take the time. The two injured persons are at the hospital, so there's no reason to rush this investigation.
But if you don't mind just sort of summing up once more, it's a gun battle on the street that sends two people to the hospital, and it's potentially drug related. Just share that again.
Well, certainly there's a shooting that occurs right on the edge of the property between two individuals. We have two victims that have been shot. Both are taken to the Halifax Trauma Center, and we have secured search warrants for this house. We recovered one gun. The two injured persons were not very forthright in the beginning of the investigation. So, I've been doing this a long time. I'd say that they were probably involved in criminal activity. One gave us a false name, so we had to use a rapid ID system to identify him after he got out of surgery to get his correct name, and that determined that he was a fugitive from Flagler County and had active felony warrants.
Does the other individual have a record?
I don't know the answer to that.
Have you recovered shell casings from two different? I know you say you recovered one gun. Have there been shell casings from a second gun?
Because it's still an active investigation, I'd rather not go into all the evidence that we have recovered.
Can you
Thank
say
you.
what type of drugs or how much drugs you are found?
Not until the second search warrant is done, but we'll update you as soon as we have that search warrant secured. I can tell you that there were some pills, there was some marijuana that we saw visibly, but we can't do that search without a new search warrant.
Is it a lot?
I don't know the answer to that.
Sheriff, thanks, Sheriff. Sure,
Okay.
appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I hear you're on a cruise and you run into
I know.
to my
My
chief
cruise
there.
buddy.
And then I hear you're quite the karaoke.
So you know what? Yeah. Yeah, and I heard you said I wasn't good.
I didn't say that. I don't know if you were or not.